If you've ever had to question every compliment that lands on your doorstep, welcome to my reality. I know it sounds dramatic, but when your last name is Coleman and your father's wealth has been splashed across magazines at over 11 billion, people stop seeing a person and start seeing a balance sheet. I gave up on blind dates after the fourth man casually asked me, before the appetizer even landed, what kind of yacht my family preferred. It wasn't always like this. I grew up thinking love was about connection, chemistry, and laughter. My mom and dad were that rare type of legacy couple who actually adored one another. She passed when I was 16, and my father never moved on. Between running an international conglomerate and raising a daughter who had more platinum cards than friends, he decided one day I'd need protection, not just from the world, but from the men in it. That day came when I turned 31. Marriage, he said over breakfast like he was reading the weather. It's time. I almost choked on my mango ginger smoothie. According to an obscure clause in the Coleman Family Trust, I had to be legally married before my 32nd birthday to retain full control of my inheritance. Don't ask. Old families do bizarre things to protect dynasties. My father wasn't technically forcing me, but he made it clear, if I didn't choose wisely, someone else might. So I decided to do what any emotionally guarded woman would do. I tested them. 3 men, each completely different, each unaware they were part of my private experiment. I didn't want to be loved for my name or my assets. I wanted to know, if I had nothing, would they still choose me? This is a story of how I found out. And trust me, it's not what you think. The letter came in a cream-colored envelope stamped with the Coleman crest in gold. Over the top, just like my father. I was lounging barefoot in leggings in my modest Atlanta apartment, eating leftover stir-fry when I opened it. My life wasn't glamorous, not by accident but by design. I'd long since opted out of penthouse living and charity galas. People expected the Coleman heiress to float around in silk robes and charter jets between continents. Instead, I rode the subway, ran a small interior design studio, and kept 3 friends who didn't care that my childhood nanny once worked for a governor's wife. Inside the envelope was a letter from the family attorney. In accordance with the terms of the Coleman Trust, Ms. Nia Coleman must be legally wed by her 32nd birthday to retain her status as sole beneficiary. Failure to do so will result in redistribution of assets pursuant to Clause 5C. My fork clattered to the plate. Dad had hinted at expectations before, but this was legal blackmail. I called him immediately. Dad, I said, skipping hello. What is this? He sounded infuriatingly calm. Nia, sweetheart, it's a safeguard. Our name attracts opportunists. So your solution is to trap me into marriage? Not trap. Encourage, he said, like we were in some cute romantic comedy. You've got 7 months. Take your time. Be smart. Smart. As if I hadn't spent my adult life dodging men with trust fund fetishes. After I hung up, I stared at my tiny kitchen, my dying plant, and the normal life I'd carved out so carefully. Then it hit me. I could either fight the clause or flip it. If I had to marry, it would be on my terms. I made a plan. 3 men, 3 stories, 1 truth, who loved me for me. And so the game began. His name was Marcus Reed, and we met in the most modern way possible, if scrolling through a dating app on a lonely Friday night while eating popcorn counts as meeting. His profile was the usual curated performance. Pictures hiking Mount Kilimanjaro, volunteering at a food drive, smiling next to an impossibly clean golden retriever. Still, his messages were funny, not the copy-paste kind, and for once, he didn't ask what I did for a living in the first 5 exchanges. Promising. Our first date was at a cozy book and coffee shop in Midtown Atlanta. He wore a deep green sweater that set off his skin tone and ordered a caramel oat milk latte without a single hint of pretense. So what do you do, Nia? He asked, leaning back like he actually cared. Interior design, I said. It wasn't a lie. I just left out the fact that my studio occupied a building my father technically owned. He grinned. Creative and practical, dangerous combo. Maybe he was real, I thought. For the next month, Marcus and I fell into an easy rhythm. Not fireworks, but warmth. He planned thoughtful dates, a rooftop picnic, a jazz night, a surprise road trip to a tiny lakeside town. He asked about my dreams, my favorite books, even the meaning behind the small tattoo on my wrist. Not once did he ask about my family, money, or background. He He passed test 1. Time, patient, consistent, no pressure. But then came test 2. Struggle. Over dinner one night, I told him I was facing a financial setback. Not bankruptcy level, just enough to sound stressful. My design studio was losing clients, and I might need to crash with a friend. Marcus paused for half a second. I could help, he offered. I've got savings, or my company's hiring. I could pull some strings. I smiled politely, but my heart sank. It was too soon. Too eager. Too much. From that point, something shifted. He started checking in constantly, just making sure you're okay, dropping hints about our future, mentioning joint plans I'd never agreed to. He was kind, yes, but suddenly suffocating. By week 5, he was sketching a version of us that didn't exist. One built on fantasy, not reality. So I moved to test 3, distance. I pulled back. Fewer texts, slower replies, short calls. He noticed immediately. 2 days later, he showed up at my door with flowers and a leather-bound planner labeled Goals for 2027. On the inside cover, he'd written Marcus plus Nia, Future Dreams. That's when I knew. Marcus loved the idea of me, the curated version, the fantasy woman who smiled easily and needed saving, not the flawed, restless version who sometimes questioned everything. I ended it that night. He didn't fight it. Just said, if you ever need anything, you know where to find me. I nodded, but never looked back. 1 down, 2 to go. I hadn't planned to reach out to Jordan, but life has a way of circling back when you least expect it. One random Tuesday night, I was scrolling through old college photos, half laughing, half cringing when I saw him. Jordan Mitchell, the musician who never played a wrong note but somehow managed to play my heart like one. We dated for nearly 2 years back in school. He was all rhythm and energy. Messy curls, worn sneakers, guitar always slung across his back like an extra limb. Then he got a touring gig in Chicago, I moved to Atlanta, and our love story faded quietly, the way most young love does. He was the only man I'd ever loved without thinking about what came next. So, after a glass or 2 of wine, I sent a message. Hey, stranger. Still breaking hearts with that guitar. He replied 6 minutes later. Only when I think about you. Classic Jordan. We met for drinks that weekend at a bar tucked between a bookstore and a record shop, the kind of place that smelled like whiskey and nostalgia. He hadn't changed much. Still wore vintage tees and spoke in metaphors like life was a song only he understood. But there was something calmer in his eyes this time. You look good, Nia, he said, his voice softer than I remembered. You seem lighter. I smiled. You mean older? He chuckled. Nah, just more you. That hit me deeper than I wanted to admit. Soon we were texting again, then dinners, then long walks through Piedmont Park that felt less like first dates and more like time travel. With Jordan, I didn't have to test much. He already knew the broke me, the unfiltered me, the no makeup ramen noodle me. And still he stayed. But something inside me whispered, don't get comfortable. One evening after a concert downtown, I asked, would you ever move back to Atlanta? He shook his head slowly. Maybe someday. But my music's in Chicago. My people, my gigs, my life's there. Why? I lied. Just wondering. The truth was, my world, my studio, my friends, my future was rooted here. I wasn't sure love could bloom across cities and lifestyles. A week later, I asked the real question. If I had nothing, no family name, no inheritance, no cushion, would you still want to be with me? He looked at me for a long moment. Nia, I never wanted you for your name. I wanted you in spite of it. But, he exhaled, I don't think we want the same kind of life anymore. It wasn't cruel. It was honest. We hugged on a quiet corner near Auburn Avenue, the streetlights flickering above us. As he walked away, guitar case on his back, I realized something hard but true. Sometimes the past feels safe not because it's right, but because it's familiar. 2 down. 1 to go. And this last one, he wasn't part of any plan. He was a wild card, the one that would flip everything I thought I knew. I met Malik West by accident, or maybe by divine setup. It happened in the lobby of a tech innovation summit I wasn't even supposed to attend. A friend of mine, Camille, had begged me to take her spot last minute. Good for networking, she said. I rolled my eyes but went anyway, dressed in all black and trying to look like I belonged. Half the men there looked like they hadn't slept since 2016. And then I saw him, Malik, standing by the espresso table, navy suit tailored sharp, no badge, no company logo, just quiet confidence. He looked like the kind of man who didn't need to prove a thing. When our eyes met, I looked away. He didn't. 10 minutes later, while I was pretending to enjoy a cup of bitter coffee, he appeared beside me. "Tell me something interesting," he said. No hello, no introduction. I laughed. "Interesting? I once redesigned a church basement into a recording studio." He raised an eyebrow. "Interior designer?" "Something like that," I replied. He didn't press. That earned him points. We ended up talking for an hour, not about tech or business or status, but about jazz, community spaces, and why airports make people cry. His humor was dry, his presence calm, and his mystery magnetic. When the conference wrapped, he simply said, "Maybe I'll run into you again." I didn't expect him to. But 3 days later, I walked into my usual coffee shop and there he was. Same seat, same drink, same smile. Coincidence? I asked. Fate, he replied. That was the beginning. We started seeing each other. No labels, no expectations. He didn't talk much about his job, something consulting adjacent, and I didn't push. There was an unspoken understanding. We both lived lives where people asked too many questions. But I still had to know if he was real. So I tested him too. One night, I told him my studio was struggling and my landlord had raised the rent. I said I might have to move in with a friend in Decatur. He didn't flinch. "I know a guy with a place in Midtown. I'll ask. But don't move to Decatur. That traffic will break your soul." That was it. No offer of money, no interrogation, just quiet support. Steady, simple, genuine. Then came the curveball. After one too many glasses of wine, Malik leaned in and said, "I don't really do relationships, but with you I might reconsider." I laughed it off, but my heart wasn't laughing. I liked him too much, and that scared me. So I did something reckless. I called in a favor. My college roommate, Tasha, now worked as a private investigator. We met at a taco truck downtown, and I told her everything. She listened, half amused. "So what you're saying is, you're either falling for this man or building a case against him." "Maybe both," I admitted. "Just check him out quietly." 3 days later, she texted, "Need to talk." It's not bad, but it's something. At her cramped office, she handed me a folder. Malik West. Real name, real job. Former investment strategist. Quit 5 years ago. Now does freelance behavioral analysis for corporations, kind of like a people strategist. "That's actually impressive," I said, flipping through. "Yeah," she nodded. "But he's from money too. Old money. Louisiana family. Doesn't use the name though. Turned down a huge partnership offer last year. Said he wasn't interested in power." I sat back, confused. Malik wasn't chasing status. He had his own wealth, his own calm. So why did I still not trust him? That night, we met at the park near the reservoir. The city lights glimmered behind us, soft and distant. I looked at him and asked, "Why don't you ever ask about my past?" He shrugged. "Because everybody's past is edited. I'd rather see how you treat the waitress than hear where you went to school." I smiled nervously. "What if I told you I was rich, like really rich?" He grinned. "Then I'd ask if you're picking up the tab." I laughed, but my chest tightened. For the first time, I felt genuine fear because I realized this man might actually pass every test. And I wasn't sure I was ready for what that meant. We were sitting on a bench at Lakewood Park, just far enough from the city that the skyline looked like another world. Malik watched the water. I watched him. I'd practiced my confession 100 times, but every version fell apart when I imagined saying it out loud. Finally, I took a breath. "There's something I need to tell you," I said. He didn't look surprised, just nodded, patient. "I haven't been completely honest about who I am," I began. "My name isn't just Nia Coleman. My father is Raymond Coleman." His eyes flickered with recognition but stayed steady. "As in Coleman Global," I added softly. "Real estate, tech, the whole empire." He leaned back. "I know." My stomach dropped. "You what?" "I figured it out a week ago," he said simply. "You're not as invisible as you think, Nia." I didn't bring it up, because I was waiting to see if you'd trust me enough to tell me yourself." The words hit like a quiet storm. "So you've been pretending this whole time?" I asked. He shook his head. "No, I've just been waiting for you to stop pretending." I stared at him, every defense I'd built starting to crack. "There's more," I whispered. "There's a clause in my inheritance. I have to be married by my 32nd birthday to keep control. That's why I started testing people." His expression didn't change. "And I'm one of the tests." I nodded. "You're the third. And the last." He was silent for a long moment. Then he stood slowly. "You could have just asked, Nia." That hurt more than if he'd yelled. "I wasn't sure you'd believe me," I said quietly. "Maybe," he replied. "But now I'm not sure you believe in us." Then he walked away. Not angry, not dramatic, just gone. And for the first time, I understood what real loss felt like. The morning of my 32nd birthday, it rained. Light, steady and merciless. I didn't throw a party. Didn't call my father. Just sat in my apartment, staring at the city that had taught me everything except how to let someone in. I thought about Marcus, who loved control more than connection. Jordan, who loved the version of me that no longer existed. And Malik, who saw me clearly, and I still pushed him away. I had built the perfect test to protect my heart, and in doing so, I trapped myself inside it. My phone buzzed. A text from Camille. 12 hours left. You marrying your reflection or what? I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I grabbed my coat, locked my door, and caught the train. No car service, no driver, no family chauffeur. Just me, and the sound of the city moving forward. I knew exactly where Malik would be, his regular Thursday meeting at a small cafe in Grant Park. When I walked in, he was there, reading something on his tablet, completely unaware. My heart pounded, so loud it drowned the jazz music playing overhead. "I failed my own test," I said softly. He looked up. No smile, no frown. Just waiting. "I was so busy trying to prove I wasn't naive," I continued, "that I forgot how to trust. I wasn't fair to you. Or to myself." He didn't interrupt. He never did. "I don't know if you can forgive me, but I'm here. No filters. No games. Just me." For a moment, silence stretched between us like a held breath. Then he said quietly, "I wasn't hurt because you tested me. I was hurt because you didn't let me choose you." Tears stung my eyes. "Then let me choose you now," I whispered, "even if it costs me everything else." He studied me for a long second, then finally reached for my hand. A slow, almost imperceptible smile tugged at his lips. "Well," he said, his voice low and warm. "Good thing I never cared about your money anyway." We got married 6 weeks later. Small ceremony, no press, no headlines, just family, a few friends, and a string quartet playing under a magnolia tree. My father wore a navy tux and didn't say "I told you so," but the smirk said enough. The clause was fulfilled. The trust remained mine. But none of that mattered anymore. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't the Coleman heiress. I was just Nia, a woman who finally learned that love doesn't need to be tested to be true.